I'm back here in the studio with our esteemed expert to provide us with some in-depth analysis of all that's happened so far. Dr. Chang-su of Korea Institute for Defense Analysis. It looks like the opening ceremony or closing ceremony of the Pyeongchang Olympic Games. That's how it felt like this year's event for the Armed Forces Day.
Yeah, they are all experts in using all LED displays, and South Korea, as a matter of fact, and the Korean Armed Forces are very good at making all kind of videos, very effective means of communication. And I think this new government in Seoul is actually trying to impress all the people with much more effective means, rather than just walking all these men and women on the street, as it was the case several years back, because many people complained because this military parade at the thoroughfare of the Seoul was lacking. But I think now seeing all these kinds of shows and displays, I understand why they plan this way.
It appealed to a mass audience instead of back in the past. It was just an affair for the military brass or military personnel to sit back and look at what they have accomplished so far.
That's right, and because we had a very similar performance in the past, even on the same place. But this time, one thing I noticed is that this was playing, in its entirety. Just 1 hour, I counted them. It's 1 hour and 60 minutes. Its entirety was shown to the Korean people, which is good, without showing any. Because in the past, it was showing some experts of this show, but this time they show the entire show to the public, to the people, and paying them where we stand right now. And they really, because they really appreciate all the men and women in uniform, but also the supporter of these armed forces, that is the citizens of the South Koreans. They really appreciate. This is a good, very important day that we can really celebrate all the achievements we have made so far and all the future roles we're going to see. One of the lacking difference I see was last year, because we were facing a serious threat from North Korea. North Korea tested the 6th nuclear test on, I think it was September 3rd, and we had this, Armed Forces Day on the first day of October last year, and it was in Pyeongtaek at the 2nd Fleet, Naval Fleet. And this situation is quite different, because there was a strong message that we are going to deter if there is any threats from North Korea. But this time we're entering a new era of peace. So instead of showing the same all the military equipment and personnel, they intentionally chose this theme that we are entering a new era with harmony and peace with North Korea. So this is, some people might say, this maybe we are concerned about less irritating a show, because North Korea was doing we asking the North Koreans to do the same things on their September 9th parade, as a matter of fact, because there was no ICBMs or Hwasong 15s on display as we expected. So North Korea also reduced their visibility of all these weapons, less irritating to South Korea. I think we made a very corresponding measure to North Korea.
It's a reciprocal action or gesture on the part of South Korea.
But they really showed the entirety, the past, present, the future of the Korean Armed Forces. And also they really appreciate all the services rendered by the UN or veterans. Even though, because these ceremonies are very routine, and you see all the very similar ceremonies held in the past, but this time very graphic, and this is shown in entirety to the nation, to the world. That's a big difference. But the most different, the key difference between the past performance and this year's performance is that we are entering a new era approach, even though there are some concerns that we just cannot trust North Koreans. But I think these are very legitimate concerns, but the president and the government are trying to show that we are about to enter a new age.
It's a message of let's give peace a chance.
That's right.
It's time to give the benefit of the doubt while we maintain some level of guarded up.
That's right. And as repeated in the president's speech and also Minister of National Defense speech, the peace only comes through strength.
Right.
The strength should be built by South Korean Armed Forces and supported by the people. So we need the trust of the people, and we should continue to maintain these very strong armed forces. And this is very effective and very elite forces. And that's why we are going to reduce the number of troops, and they're going to reduce the service period for each service. So this is a part of the whole kind of military transformation, I would say, as a whole.
Whenever President Moon Jae-in goes on to conduct some level of diplomacy to set a reconciliatory tone with North Korea, he appears to focus just as much on being ready in the national defense front, whether it's launching the submarine or discussing joint drills with the U.S. And of course, even in today's speech, he talked about how remembering war is one way of being prepared and appreciating peace. What about his speech stood out for you, Dr. Kim, today?
The thing that stood out most for me was different context he was making this address because again last year and in the previous years we were talking about how we have to deter those kind of threats, which was a enemy to us back then. But now we pledge we're going to have a much better relationship from a foe to a kind of state-to-state relationship. That's why the role of the armed forces should also change or adapt to the changing situation. I think the whole focus was now we are about to enter a new era of peace and reconciliation and also prosperity. So the role of the armed forces should also change to adapt to new situations. So that's the whole message that has been echoed by the President and the Minister of National Defense. It's a new Defense Minister, Chang-su. Yes, this Air Force. So because the first thing we saw is that the repatriation wall remains at Seoul Airport, Seoul Air Base this morning. And also it was a speech made by our new defense minister, who was a 4-star Air Force general.
And also a fighter jet pilot.
Yes, that's right. So there actually, behind the scenes, there's a lot of significance of why we chose these specific topics in place and the person in today's whole shows from the morning to the night.
Whether it's a regular Joe that's serving his mandatory 2 years in the military, there's always been a clear line of division that's separating from those in uniform and those civilians who are not. But I think right now it's a time for us to bring down that wall and make sure there's greater communication, just to let the world, let Korea know that it's closely interconnected, whether you're in the military or working a 9-to-5 job.
Right.
Right. Lastly, before we wrap things up, how do you see the military reforming from here on, other than maintaining better communication and becoming more open to the public?
That's one thing, but we are going to see, because many people are talking about all the habits in the military, because there are some people, including the defense community, defense security command, for example. So they found a lot of things to be changed, to be revised as a matter for the better. This is not just this particular government's efforts, because all these kind of defense reform was there, haven't been there in the past. But we actually not succeeded in every effort in the past years, in the past governments. But this time, the President made it very sure we are here really means that we're going to transform the military, and we're going to bring in very effective and very powerful defense reform, so that we can really be much more justified, much more liable, much more trustworthy kind of, not only for the nation as a whole, but for the young men and women who will be enlisted in the Army,
so they will be
Force,
inspired,
and
and they would aspire to look at it as a permanent fixture or a career in the long run, rather than just some place
many
to stop
people
by.
are trying to volunteer for this very good job, very secure job security is there, and the relatively good pay is there. So many people just opt to work for the armed forces these days.
Right.
Yes.
Certainly, this is a very promising start in terms of letting Korea know that the military is trying to open up to be more transparent. I think that's one key word we're looking for. Dr. Kim Chang-su, thank you so much for being here with us throughout the Armed Forces Day event. We appreciate your insights.
My pleasure. Thank you.